everyone, welcome back to another episode of Rules of Survival. We're currently in season 3, which is basically me writing draft 3, and this is episode 2 of season 3. If you are new here, Rules of Survival is my space horror sci-fi novel with zombies in space, loosely inspired by franchises like Aliens and Resident Evil but in space, with a side B-plot romance, sort of the same amount you would have in The Mummy where you have action versus romance, similar levels. So in the previous episode, what we did was go through my critique partner's feedback, analyze it, sort it, put it in a table in Notion, and try and organize it in a way that I can then tackle. Now that we have done this, there is another step I need to do with this table, which is I want to have in the order of my chapters and scenes every change. So I want to figure out which change affect which chapter, which scene, so that everything is linear, so that when I start retyping, I can actually do it in the proper order and I don't have to worry about going back and forth between my different changes that I need to do. I just can open whatever tab I've got on Notion and see, okay, we're in this chapter, this change is happening here and affecting this chapter. I am very linear both in what I read and what I write, and so unfortunately I'm not the one who can do things out of order in general, and I really enjoy doing things in order, so that's what we're going to be working with. But I don't think that this requires an entire episode for me to do this, so we're obviously going to do this and then we're going to start writing. And you may have heard me say the word retype. I am in fact going to do another retype. So in season 2, as in for draft 2, I retyped the entirety of the manuscript of draft 1. So every scene that had changes was changed as I went. Every new scene that I needed to add was added and drafted freshly and typed freshly. And then every scene that stayed pretty much exactly the same, I still retyped. And why did I do that? Katie does this for her manuscripts and it seems to work for her. And I figured I needed to do that for general line edits because I hate that step, which is supposed to be the last step at the very end when you feel like all the developmental edits are done, there's nothing else to change in your book, you can just beautify it. I think some people enjoy this. I don't, because I find it very long-winded and I tend to drag my feet a little bit and it takes me forever to go through every scene. And I also feel like I forget my flow at some point and then I don't realize that I have, not improved some paragraphs of text and they just sit in the middle of better paragraphs of text, and it feels like it's a never-ending job. Because I struggle to do it in one go, to do every single sentence of my book in one go, I find it a little bit easier to try and do it as I'm reworking my draft. So even if some of these paragraphs end up disappearing at the very end, I don't mind that because I still feel like I'm improving my craft in general by making an effort to make the prose better as I go. And so I'm still learning and I'm not, wasting my time doing that. So I will in fact do a retype once again. And so I hope that this will reduce the amount of stuff I have to do when it comes to the line edits once again. So I'm hoping that in this episode we're not only going to finish organizing ourselves, but we're also actually going to start the retype. And I now have an official deadline in the sense that I have one beta reader that is confirmed. I have a few in mind that I need to ask to make sure that they're free around the time that I'm picturing, which is November-ish. But my one beta reader that is confirmed is my friend Stig, and I knew that he wanted to read this book at some point, and I did promise him the next draft, which is this one. And he is technically doing an exam on the 12th of November, so he's essentially free from the 13th of November to do this read. So my deadline is now officially 13th of November. That's how I'm seeing it, because that gives me exactly 3 months. Because if we could retype from the 13th of August, then that would mean 13th of August to 13th of September to 13th of October to 13th of November, 3 months. And I feel like 3 months is absolutely doable for a retype of this size, because when I did draft 2, I had brand new chapters to add in, scenes that never existed, things I needed to move around. It was a proper developmental edit, like it was a bigger one, and that took me 4 months when I was ready to start. So I just needed to think about where things were going to change, and that took me like a month or so to fiddle around. And I think I extended the time, right? Like I could have done this quicker, but if I sat down and just really thought about it. But I took around a month to think it through, and then I did it in 4 months. So giving myself 3 months for a smaller edit because there's not as many new things. There's definitely no new scenes that I need to add as far as I'm concerned. There are potentially some new paragraphs of text and bits within scenes that will be added in, but nothing as big as what I did in draft 2. And I don't need to move things around as much either. So there's really just no need for the same amount of time is how I'm picturing it. So I'm thinking 3 months is doable. Now, before I start, there's 2 main things I want to do that I have started doing a little bit in between the 2 vlogs, like the previous one and this one. In my previous vlog, I explained to you the entirety of the giant table with all of my critique partners' feedback. I do have a call with them next Sunday, so this coming Sunday. And this will allow me to ask some of my questions and to think tank some things. But essentially, I have 2 things I know that I need to work on by myself. One is I have some ideas already to expand a little bit the background story for Axel, my male main POV. And the reason why I need to expand a little bit like his backstory is simply because there were some comments from a critique partner saying how like they were interested in knowing more about why he's truly there, and it feels a little bit like he doesn't have a proper reason. And then I thought about the fact that he's also very immediately trusting of my main character Themis, despite the fact that she has a clear sign of the disease I made up, FED, first Arthur's disease, because she has a white strand of hair that she wears like a badge of honor, and Axel immediately trusts her upon meeting her, which is not normal because most people would do the other way around and not trust these people. So I was thinking, because I wanted a little bit of a tragic backstory, but I don't want it to be like a huge thing. Like, I'm not gonna write it, right? Like, I just need bullet points. That's what I mean. Because I need to know what he's gone through, but I don't need to like write every element of it. There's not gonna be flashbacks is what I mean. But we do know for a fact he has 2 sisters, Max and Katie, and Max is the eldest who's been raising them. So that means they were orphans at some point or another, and she had to take it upon herself to be the adult of the family. And I was thinking potentially maybe his dad wasn't in the picture, but his mom died of FED, and that would also potentially explain the need for money and everything, and the fact that he went on a ship really young and became a mercenary, sort of like because that was the most logical route at that age to make money, as in credits, and then reformed at some point or another. And that's the only part I'm a little bit iffy about, is when did he decide to reform himself into like a citizen and to not be a mercenary anymore? Because obviously he has all of these enhancements that were illegal, so he can't work full-time for a big corporation, but he can be a freelance hire for them like he is for Vortex. And there's a reason he takes the Vortex job, which might be money related again. So something along those lines I need to figure out a little bit more and have a more precise idea. So I want to work on that. And then the second thing is, there were some comments regarding Isabel, which is my main villain, and she appears as almost a red herring because she's too obvious of a villain. And so there's some work I need to do on her anyway. Like, there's some scenes we've already decided with my friends I was gonna change to make it less obvious. But I'm also thinking I need to work on her backstory to have a reason why she decides to be a spy for Masashi Win and to go into this Vortex operation and to work for Masashi Win. I want to have like a reasoning for it, and so I'm thinking I need a backstory for her. So these are the 2 characters I'm gonna work a little bit more on, and I think I'm just gonna need bullet points of ideas, but I may need to do a little bit of research to get there. So that's going to be our first step, and then we're going to do a chapter by chapter checklist of items I need to change to do all of these changes, and then we'll get to retyping. almost ready to start writing draft 3, but I do have to finish doing what I've been doing for the past week or so. It's been taking me an hour here, an hour there, an hour here, an hour there, like so much time to actually get through this table. So what I've been doing is on Notion, I've got the table I talked about before. I have made it into another board with not started, doing, done, just so I can know which ones I have already classified and sorted. What I'm doing is each element, I'm going inside with my notes and with, you know, the notes I've copied and pasted from my critique partners. And I have made a new reverse outline table. Well, just a basic outline of my current novel, chapter by chapter. I didn't go scene by scene this time, so it's just chapter by chapter. It is not as in-depth as the reverse outline I did in between draft 1 and 2, where I used the story grid and I had like the polarization thing and whether we had a reveal or something, and the characters involved and the locations and everything was in that table. This table is a lot simpler. It is basically the chapter number, the chapter title, the POV, because that is useful for me to remember, to know which chapter I'm in. I usually know which one is going to be, oh, that's an Axel chapter, that's a Themis chapter, so like that was useful for me to check. A summary of the chapter. So usually that will have 2 scenes. So I've tried to summarize the 2 scenes into, you know, 1 little or 2 little sentences. Which act we're in, which that is based off my 5-act structure that I made up at some point. So it's not a 3-act structure, which is why it might sound confusing, but there are 5 acts in total in this. The event we're in, and by that I mean within the structure, I've got things like the setup scenes, the inciting incident, debate scenes, B-story, pinch point, second decision, exploration scenes, from bad to worse, etc. Basically telling me which part we're into the act. Status, which they're all not started right now, but that allowed me to do a board version. And then feedback. This is a relation property. So in the tables that you use on Notion, if you want to connect 2 tables together, elements from 2 tables, you can use the relation property. So I've added a column which is the relation to my first table, and I've called it feedback. And in there, I can then link all the different elements that I've made, like each different change that I'm supposed to make. So for instance, in my chapter 1, there's something I wanted to add about the flashback in relation to Isabel. So the feedback just has the link to that specific card. And when I open the chapter card itself, I've got like a bullet point to-do list with just what I want to change and what I want to add. I have sorted through 17 of these changes. I've got 3 in progress because I've already started placing some elements from these changes in some of the chapters, but they usually affect more than 1 chapter, right? Which is why they're in progress, because I still have elements I haven't placed in other chapters of changes, and then I'll put it into the done column, and I have 5 that are not started. So I have 8 left. Currently, it is 9:45 in the morning. I wanted to start chapter 1 today. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to meet my friend Marta later. We've got like an in-between point where we're meeting up today because our trains are fucked, so we can't actually meet at one another's place. So we're going to like go somewhere else. We're going to do a little cafe writing session. So in order to do that, I would like to be done with sorting this table. So basically this morning, I want to finish sorting this table. So I have 3 that are in progress, 5 I haven't started. And in the 5 that I haven't started, there's like 3 at least I know are going to only affect like 1 chapter, and that's going to be so easy to sort, and then I can just mark them as done. But in the in progress, there's 1 that is basically my info dumps and sci-fi over explanations. That one is a more complex layered one that's going to affect a bunch of different chapters, so I probably need to sort through that one a little bit, like take more time to get through this one. But yes, once that is done, I can start rewriting chapter 1. We said we were going to do retyping. My chapter 1 for the moment is one of the least affected chapters out of all the chapters where I'm going to have changes. I have some obvious ones where I have like a ton of changes, but I think it's just the bullet list of like the to-do list of things is really long, but it's not actually like that bad. And then before I meet my friend Marta, I'm going to try and set up a new document in Scrivener, because I think my retype this time is going to be a Scrivener retype. Because we've used First Draft Pro for the first draft, and then ellipsis for the second draft, and now we're going to use Scrivener for the third draft. I find it useful to change where I'm writing things because I see it in a different manner. It's usually a different typeface. I might go from light mode to dark mode, things like that. It makes me see mistakes more easily, so I feel like that'll be beneficial. It's absolutely not necessary to have 3 different writing programs. You could just use Word and that's it if you wanted to, but this is how I'm gonna do it. Today is Tuesday the 18th of August and I have officially started writing draft 3. I actually started over the weekend. So on Saturday, I think I finished in the morning my last little bits of the outline table. And then in the afternoon, I joined Marta. I managed to write a bunch during that time. And I think on that day, I wrote a total of 2,600 words or so. I may have written some of them back at home in the evening when I came back, but the majority of them were in our little cafe trip. It's actually so fun to be with a friend in real life writing, especially when it comes to starting a new draft, so I really enjoyed that. On Sunday, I wrote another 3,600 words, so in total it was a bit over 6,000 words for the weekend, which I feel very happy about because that is basically the beginning of my book again. And on Sunday, I also talked to my critique partners. So we had a call planned with everyone involved. So me, Anna, Hudson and Becca had a 4-way chat where I told them about any decision I wasn't sure about. Anything that I was like, I haven't fully decided what to do or how to solve this, or I think I have, but I sort of need to hear back from you guys that you think this will work. Which was so helpful because I really needed a soundboard and some people to tell me like, hey, you're overthinking this, which in some cases I was. There was one instance where I think I have like a sort of flashback scene where Themis realizes she remembers Isabel from having seen her at her interview at Masashi Win, and so that sort of like triggers her realizing that's her, she's the traitor, blah blah blah. Except I think it was Hudson who mentioned she thought it was weird to have this moment of her remembering it without having the actual scene in the book, and so she was like, can we move the scene to like another moment in the book, like maybe she meets her at the clinic when she goes for her injections, etc. And I was overthinking it, and I was thinking like, or maybe she remembers more details about her interview when she's talking to Valea about it, blah blah blah. Talked to my critique partners about it, and they were all 3 of them like, you know what, you can just cut off that moment. Like, she doesn't have to remember her from anywhere. It's not a whodunit that I'm writing, it's not a thriller, and therefore it doesn't need that sort of like, oh my god, here's a clue, here's the moment she realizes this. The intense moments come more from the horror and like the pace and from the sudden, okay, we're being invaded by zombies now, what do we do? And there's other twists that are sort of fun or matter, but this one is not really a twist, and it's sort of like a logical conclusion based on who's left anyway, because there's a point where people are dying, so who can be the traitor is not that many people left. So it was really useful to talk to people about this so that I knew what made sense, what I was overthinking, what I was spending too much time trying to find a solution for when we didn't really need one. If you hear weird noises, it's my dog. And then for some other solutions, it was just nice to talk to a group of people who had different opinions about some things. When it comes to like explanations and over the top info dumps for like sci-fi stuff, it was really funny because it was like, well, Becca's the most target audience I could find for this book. She's definitely someone who would read this book and pick it up in a store out of the 3, and I think Anna would, but maybe less so. And then I think Hudson herself was like, I don't really read sci-fi normally, so take what I say with a grain of salt. And all 3 of them had completely different opinions about the info dumps and the sci-fi explanations. Becca was like, no, this is great, this is what I read, I love it. And Anna was like, oh, there's like some parts that are a bit overcomplicated, or there's a little bit too much in this instance. And then Hudson was like, cut it. It was really funny to be able to talk to all three of them about it at the same time and to see different reactions at the same time. And also it was just such a joyful moment to have friends who have worked so hard for me and just read my book and enjoyed it. This was a long chat to give you an update, and I'm currently in the middle of chapter 3. So I've already rewritten 2 chapters. A lot of my retyping is clearly just retyping, but then in some areas I have managed to cut down both chapters by 200 words, which is not many words, but it would be good if I can do that more. And that is a little bit of my goal as well, is to try and reduce down some of the info dumps and the repetition of information so that I can cut down on word count. I'm now in the first chapter from Axel's point of view. It is so fun to find my characters again. I'm really enjoying this aspect of it. It's just like getting back into it. It's just like, oh my god, I've missed you. So I will keep you guys updated. I think this vlog is just going to be act 1 out of my 5 acts. So we're going to work on the first act now, and then I'll probably do 1 vlog per act, I'm assuming. Today is Friday the 21st of August, and I did not expect to finish this first vlog of writing draft 3 so quickly, but we're officially done with Act 1. We're sitting at a total of 17,599 words, and that is approximately 750 words shorter than what we previously had for the same chapters. So it's the first 5 chapters. I've just finished retyping the last scene of the last chapter, and all I've done so far in this first act is delete some bits, add some bits, change a little bit the wording in some areas, but it's a lot of retyping the same words, and I do find that it is helpful for me because I'm able to cut some words as I go as well, and realizing this is basically the same thing as we've just said there, or this could be said in a more concise manner, things like that. And my goal is to make the manuscript shorter than it currently is, because the manuscript for draft 2 was basically 106,000 words, and I would love for it to be under 100k at the end of draft 3. I don't know if that's going to be doable. It might be the kind of work I do a little bit more when I go into line editing, which would be the step after, but maybe I'll be able to, because there's more chapters to come where I have more repetitive moments that I can cut down. So far, I feel like because we're introducing a lot of things, there needs to be a little bit of info dumps, not actual info dumps, but we need to have some information coming through that I can't really cut down on. But I have been able to shave off approximately 100 to 200 words per chapter so far, which is why we're now down 750 words compared to draft 1. I'm feeling pretty good about the small changes I've done. There's only one change so far that I have run past one of my critique partners just to see if they thought that this worked better, and they did. They only had one piece of advice about changing the order of paragraphs, and it made a lot of sense. And this is why, again, it's so useful to talk to people when you're just in your own head for so long, and it's so good to have like someone to bounce ideas off with, and just be able to be like, hey, do you think this works? Do you think this doesn't work? It's just so good. So very grateful. But yeah, I feel like this has been a great start. Also, I'm writing today because even though it's a Friday, I took the day off. So this is basically a long weekend for me, and I only have plans on Saturday. So today is mostly a writing day. Sunday is going to be mostly a writing day. So I'm excited for that as well. I have been working off a little calendar view as well of my reverse outline I redid for this. And so we're 5 chapters down. My plan is to still have chapter 6 done this weekend, and then I've got chapter 7 and 8 next week, 9, 10, 11 the week after. And I think I'm doing 2 to 3 chapters per week at the moment. I think I have more weekends to come where I have some time off to do more stuff. I am still planning to work on chapter 6 this weekend, but that is basically the first chapter in Act 2, which is when we're finally aboard the Carpathia. So this is when we're on the ship, about to depart, and I feel like that's why I split that one from Act 1, because Act 1 was very much on Earth to sort of like getting ready, you know, getting the debate scenes through, deciding whether to go, having those discussions between characters about why they're going on this trip, why they've agreed to this mission. It's sort of like all of this condensed, and then my act 2, which is not the same as Save the Cat's Beach Heat act 2, right, because I have 5 acts. My act 2 is when, right after this reinforced decision has been made and my characters are now on board the ship about to depart from Earth 2 and off to the Nightmare Planet. Let's end this vlog here. I'm feeling very good about the start. I hope that I can keep this continuum going. But thank you guys for watching. I hope that you're still enjoying this little series and that you'll keep watching until the very end, until we're published. That's the goal. And leave a like if you enjoyed it, and I will see you guys in the next one.